Hello, and welcome back. My name's Corbin, and you're watching episode 6 of my heavily modded Forever world. Previously, we left off getting the digital miner and a few of the core machines that we're going to need to exponentially speed up this world, and well, that it did. I'm going to rattle off a few of the things that I got done off camera, that way we could all get caught up to speed. Well, for starters, I built this pretty cool library at the bottom of our tree, and got us a nice netherite set of armor enchanted. This is in the upper tiers of some of the best set that you can get in terms of enchantments, and I did that because I went mining with this mining gadget. This mining gadget is what you saw at the little preview, but it doesn't actually do damage. It's just a tool that mines very efficiently with efficiency 5, magnet, junk, and then you can change the size and shape and the range. On top of that, I got a bunch of this tree built up, and I got the pathways in. These pathways use a really cool technique for the rope, which is actually low voltage wire connectors with copper cable in between them, because, well, regular rope doesn't look like that. So I had to get creative. But coming up here to our main area, we have a whole bunch of more drives. While I was building, I had these drives AFKing, and I built essentially 2 storage racks of 16Ks, and our 4Ks are still down here. But before we get into the ME system, I actually went ahead and upgraded these machines to the ultimate tier. That way they have more space and produce faster. But inside of our ME system, we have a backlog of all of the building blocks that are going to be altered and changed for our core building materials. And I did that with a igneous extruder setup at the bottom of our ME system. So this pipes directly into it, and this is a way to use a water source or ice block and a lava source to infinitely produce things, kind of like a cobblestone generator, but with a few modded ticks to it. But probably the coolest part and the hardest part of the work that I got done is down here at our big reactor. So this big reactor now has a storage drive. And this storage drive is just about as endgame as it gets, with room to expand. I can make this a whole lot bigger, and we're never going to use this much power because GFE is, I believe, in the billions of ticks, and I have been ongoing non-stop filling this thing up, and I am only at 6.2 GFE, which is not even 10%, I think. So that's pretty awesome. But before I got to doing that, I had to build a precursory system to produce me some of the material that it needed, and I put it out here. It is these brine towers. So this works by taking water, putting it into this, giving it some power with the heating source, and it produces brine. Then this brine goes to the exact same system and produces lithium. Lithium gets pumped out to here, turned into a gas, and then comes out as lithium dust. The final thing was actually one of the first things I got done, which was this apiary. I needed a few of the honeycombs to make candles, and the best way I knew was to do it this way. I don't always like doing things modded. I like doing a little Minecraft twist to it, so I just made these with some daylight sensors, but it is modded technically because I have this hopper here. So this hopper works by picking up anything in a 7x7 radius, kind of like this. You throw it, picks it up, and puts it into that same ender chest that's hardwired into our storage system. I want to take this time to talk about the next major project that I have planned for this world. To help you understand what I mean by a very large scope, I'm going to show you my minimap here in a moment. But I mentioned briefly that I'm really interested in lore series like Warhammer 40k. I've decided that I want to build a very large hive city. How large exactly? Well, let's take a look. This square that I have marked out right here is roughly the area of our tree. Now we zoom out a bit and we can see our entire island. If we zoom out even further, and the keen of you may start to notice a black circle around this area. This ring, I actually manually placed each one of these blocks to mark it out so that we could see it on the minimap, but I'm going to clear this area all the way down to bedrock to make a perimeter. This diameter of the circle is about 2048 blocks or 1024 radius, and the center point is at this waypoint I have. I tried marking it exactly at the center of the island so that we could see just about how much we're going to clear, but don't worry, I'm not going to do this by hand. I'm going to use a whole bunch of quarries that mine very, very fast to get this all emptied out. It's going to take some time, but hopefully I can get it done. Before we can even dream about quarrying anything out, we're going to need a lot more power. If you want to excavate something fast, it's going to require some very high power numbers. Therefore, we need to make some other system that is way faster than our tiny reactor. In which case, I decided I'm going to make a mechanism turbine with these blocks that I've set aside here, and that is going to convert steam into RF per tick. I'm going to use that to try and fill our induction matrix. That way we can pull power from that. It will also probably be in our best interest to have a few farms going in the background. That way we can collect some of the materials we'll need for our later block palette. I set aside this top row to show you a few of the items we're going to be harvesting. While we get started crafting here, I want to take the time to thank all of you that have gotten to episode 6. If you've bared with it, if you like the series, then I hope that the rest of it you'll enjoy. I take the time about every 5 or so episodes to reevaluate my settings, maybe my microphone settings, my audio settings, anything that might make the video quality a bit better, as well as make the production process for myself go smoothly. That way I can get a few more videos out and make this an enjoyable experience. If you have any suggestions, please let me know. Without any further ado, let's get started. Well, here we have it. This is the farm stack that I made. I ended up moving it up 1 block per section. That way we could have a little bit more headroom and walk around under it to include this cable movement. But the original mod that I went with for the cable management was XNet, but for some reason the inputs and outputs just weren't working. None of my machines were getting energy, none of the items were getting transferred, so I went with the good old-fashioned Ender IO conduit and mechanism power cable combo. So they are all synced up in parallel up the side column, and the plant gatherer, for example, will push items out using the extract function. You have to make sure to set this to always active, and it will fill in the slots in the sowers, but the sowers have an option to lock what you can allow in, so it will only allow the seed that it is set to per each stack. I'm just waiting to get a few of each essence per layer. That way I can set up an ender chest with an item filter to only accept the byproducts, not the seeds and saplings themselves. Eventually we'll have to make a different system to store the seeds and saplings because it will get clogged otherwise, but for now this should do. As you can see that this top layer has already been working, so every time that it grows a tree, it'll start by collecting the leaves first and then the logs. Let's see if I can get a little bit of bone meal so I can show you that happening. So it turns out we got a tree growing here, but you could see that inside the system it will start farming at the leaves first, and then it will go to the logs. The logs will get filled up here pretty quickly, but as the saplings go in, they automatically get fed back into this plant sower. However, the ebony saplings are a bit weird, and I might need to change them because, well, ebony saplings only grow when there is more than 2 blocks of space around them. Yeah, the ebony saplings themselves are just not working. So I'm going to switch out the ebony saplings for a different Minecraft sapling, in which case they will then grow and serve the same system. If we go ahead and unlock this system here and toss in some birch, then you can see what I mean. It'll automatically plant it. And then the cycle repeats. Now we get to the part where we can start finally crafting some of this turbine. The bottleneck here is going to be the production of steel. I only have 1 machine that I can make steel out of right now, using the simple iron into the metallurgic infuser. You pass it through twice, kind of like so, and you get steel blend. However, the problem is that I need 1 steel per singular casing, as for the conversion rate, and I need probably a couple hundred of this casing. But not only that, I also need to make another nuclear reactor that I convert into a steam plant. You do that with bigger reactors, and I already explained that this uses the casing and the control rods, but in which case, instead of an injection port for the fuel, well, you will need an access port for the fuel, you're also going to need an import bus for water, coolant port. Here we go. So you pump water into the coolant port, and as a reactor does, it converts it into steam, and quite a lot of steam at that. So I'm going to see how efficient I can make it, and probably going to use a small reactor because even the small reactors will produce enough steam for this turbine, but for starters, it's going to have to be this turbine housing first, just so I can get an idea of what kind of production I'm going to be looking at. So yeah, let's get started on that. Well, we seem to have the system set up now. The problem I was having at first after fumbling around was that I made this size a little too big, so I had to shrink it from the top down, and that's why I had to keep breaking some blocks and rebuilding and replacing this thing. But now that I have that situated, I ended up making another reactor similar to the one that we have as our main power source, except this one has a water tap. This water tap turns the water that gets pumped in into steam. However, the problem being is that when you pump out the steam, it is in liquid form. Yeah, liquid steam. So you have to put it through these rotary condensers to convert it to the gaseous steam. As you can see here, it's kind of flashing on and off. Well, that's because it's filling up this turbine. I believe the turbine has to hit a certain amount of steam before it even turns on, but the problem I'm having now is that this machine is not holding the power enough. So I believe that it is because we are using this Elite Universal cable, and it only pumps at a rate of 400 kFE, and each one of these machines uses 80 kFE. So on top of that, we're also using the same power source to tap into our, or to fill our induction matrix down here. I believe that the power is just not splitting well enough, so I need to finally upgrade this universal cable that I thought would hold us out for some time. Alright, well, I totally airballed that. It actually was that this reactor wasn't producing anything. It didn't have any uranium. So rather than pumping it out into this downward area to go all the way to the rotary condensers, there was nothing in this line. And this induction matrix is an input right here. So it can't siphon from the induction matrix. And the reason of having it connected that way is so that when this starts fully making power, that it'll actually charge not just these machines, but it'll put the rest of the power that it's making into the induction matrix at the same spot. But now that the reactor has power, these rotary condensers are producing steam at a rather low rate, unfortunately, so I'm going to have to add maybe some more of these upgrades that I previously took out and see if it'll hold in there. It's just barely hanging on because I'm not quite producing enough power fast enough, but hopefully there is... Actually, I might be able to make a gas efficiency upgrade, but I don't know if this is for this machine. Let's try it. Yeah, it does not seem like it's letting me install this gas efficiency upgrade, so this thing must be used for other machines, but I mean, when in doubt, I could always make some more rotary condensers. However, the power that I'm getting is not enough yet. As you could see, it shows me right here the amount of FE per tick that I am getting out of this line. So it is producing power, but it just does not have enough steam at the moment to keep up with the demand of the machine. I'm sure it'll start climbing slowly, but in the meantime, I'm going to have to just make maybe a few more of these rotary condensers to try and get this machine cranking. I was taking a look at some of the recipes, and I actually did this in a rather inefficient way, because I thought that the steam coming out of the reactor would already be in gas form, rather than having to condense it down from a liquid form to a gas form. But there is actually another machine that works rather similar with the same turbine structure called a boiler that'll produce the same system but just with that steam gas. So I'm gonna go have to try to make that rather than this reactor in the background here, and we're going to revamp it, see what I can get for results. Alright, this setup works a whole lot better back here. This boiler is producing a lot more steam that's feeding into our turbine. However, the problem is still that I don't have enough power to get it jump started. Essentially, this resistive heater is using 7.1 thousand RF per tick just to maintain a mediocre flow rate into this turbine. However, if you remember, this only produces 17.8 thousand. So with two resistive heaters, it is significantly throttled, and I can only get a little bit of output from this machine, only netting us about 400 FE. So I'm going to need to figure out a way to get this system heated, at least temporarily, a lot hotter than what it's getting to, so that I can boil more and more water. But the steam system is working. I have a direct pipeline here to the gaseous steam going into the turbine. I don't have to convert it anymore. I like this setup a lot better because it's cleaner, but I need to figure out how to get more power flowing. I'm trying to get this system jump-started as best as I can. I added 3 more fuel wood burners to see if I can get the temperature of this boiler any hotter, and it's just not working. So I think I'm just going to have to do what I didn't want to do and jump-start it with the induction matrix setup, because that has its own power output, which is pretty high, but it would require me to make another tesseract, and I like to try to minimize my use of tesseracts, not because they're hard to make or anything, but because I like to see if I could do it in a different way than just to crutch off of my already existing power source. But hopefully this might be enough to jumpstart the electric heaters, and it'll keep working. I don't know if it'll throttle, though. That's the problem I'm really worried about. Because now they're full, now this gets hotter, and we are getting more steam in the system. Let's go ahead and see if we can boost it to 10,000. Okay, it's already on 10,000. Let's go to 100,000. 100,000 RF per tick. Each one. Ah, see, now that's getting us a lot more steam. You could even see the turbine turning now. Once this turbine's turning, you can see that the production at the top here is a pretty solid number. I mean, I don't know if it'll hold us over for very long, but it might work out. I think our bottleneck now is actually this cable over top, the thermodynamic cable. So I'm going to make another upgraded version of that and see if that might help us out. I was doing a little bit of research on why these machines felt like they were having a hard time starting, and it turns out that this is not the best way to do a standalone power system. This is primarily to catch some of the excess resources like steam produced by some of the later reactors, like the fusion reactor. I don't really think I need to make a fusion reactor right now for what I want to be doing. This was just an attempt to see if I could extract a little bit more power off of what I was already doing. The only way I could make this even a little bit more efficient is if I had some power system like this reactor behind me that was already producing steam as a byproduct, and I had it used to power this turbine. The boiler is also a way to do that, to have a little bit of your excess power converted into steam, but for the most part, this boiler is used for a coolant solution for a fusion reactor. So I'm going to put a little pause on this power setup, and I'm going to go do a few other things. We did a good bit of the tech stuff, so I want to find some time to explore a bit more of the Nether and try to find the Holy Locket and a few other relics that might be beneficial to us now that we have this new armor and we will not struggle as much. Let's get going. I made it back to the overworld with not a single relic found. Well, this seems to be about all the time that I have for this episode, and we got quite a bit done. A few farms in the background, as well as we now have an idea for what kind of power sources we're going to need for our quarrying. I'm probably going to work on some of that off camera, that way we can get the ball rolling for next episode, but yeah. Anyways, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, and later!